Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I've been playing a lot of Gwent lately. My last video talking about my progression from Mythgard to Gwent and getting pro rank in under 2 weeks didn't upload. So that's part of the reason you haven't been hearing from me. The other part is I've been really busy trying to get that upper tier level of Gwent play. So I figured I'd share some Gwent with you guys today and, see what you guys think. So we're going to start off with a training match, and I'm going to try and explain the game to the best of my abilities. I am by no means an expert, but let's go ahead and get into some games. All right, so there's essentially 3 different types of game styles you can play with Gwent. There's seasonal, which has a sort of restriction that changes the gameplay of the deck. So for instance, Season of the Elves, when you play a unit from your hand, play a unit with the same provision cost from your deck. Your starting deck is doubled in size at the start of the match. So essentially all decks have provision costs. We'll go ahead and pull this one up just to show you guys an example. So I've used all my provision costs for this deck. You have to have a minimum of 25 cards and you need at least 13 units in your deck. There's a tactical advantage for those who are on the play, because being on the play is an extreme disadvantage in this game, as opposed to other games where getting that tempo advantage is kind of important. Because there's no attacking or blocking system in this game. You're gonna be playing your cards out one by one. They do interact with each other on some levels, but there's no attacking the opponent's phase or dealing like that. It's just amassing the most points as possible while taking away as many of your opponent's points as possible. So tactical advantage usually is some sort of bonus that the player going first has. For this one, I get to boost an ally by 5, and then my tactical advantage disappears. Masquerade Ball, you see this number between the star and the name? That is the provision cost. I believe there's like 130. Your leader ability grants you more or less provisions depending on the power of the leader ability. Lockdown is really powerful. Disabling every opponent's leader is, like some people build their decks around their leader ability, and having that taken away at the start of the game is pretty devastating. And so this only adds 10 provision cost to the deck. So if I were to change this, I can choose something that has 16. And now I have 6 more provision slots available. So I can change these 5s into 6s or 7s or 8s or whatever. Maybe take out one of these 4s and put in something that's 10. Just as long as it adds up to 166. So let's change this back, and let's get into a game against the AI. So I can try and explain things as we go, without having to worry about a clock. Every Wednesday is plus 25 experience. They have a great leveling system where as just another way to generate rewards for playing the game. The first time you reach level 61, it resets you back down to 1 instead of level 61, and it gives you a prestige, and that prestige affects you for the rest of your entirety of playing Gwent. And the first prestige is you open an additional rare in every pack, which is huge. So I am luckily above that. This is my second time going up to level 60, so I need to hurry up and get there. But the training match, taking advantage of disabling our opponent's leader ability. This deck has a super control deck. It likes to just say F you to everything your opponent does. So artifacts are pretty powerful in this game, but I doubt my opponent is playing any, so I'll go ahead and ditch that. I'll ditch one of these duplicates. The gold cards are usually more powerful than the not gold cards. They call them bronze. So you usually want to like find your gold cards and go from there. All right. So we're on the play, which essentially means we're going first. And this card says at the end of the turn, boost itself by 1 if it's the only creature on the row. Now there are some creatures like this that have to be played in the ranged row to get its effect. And there's ranged, which is the little archery symbol, and melee, which is the sword symbol. So I'm gonna play this in the melee row. I'm gonna give it +5 to play around any sort of removal my opponent might have. And now we can draw our highest costed card in the deck, which is always going to be Masquerade Ball. So this is a scenario, an artifact that I was referring to earlier, and it gets the prologue whenever you play it. So I'll play it and it'll spawn a Thirsty Dame. Thirsty Dame says whenever an enemy receives a status. That was really lucky for me. If he had hit this, I would have been very sad. But whenever it receives a status, this guy gets +1/+1. Then if we meet the progression requirement, which is to play an aristocrat for this particular scenario, it moves on to the next chapter. So let's show you what that looks like. We'll go ahead and deploy an aristocrat, which triggers our next chapter, which gives us a Fangs of the Empire, which allows us to poison a unit. 2 poisons kill anything. There are ways to get rid of your first poison, but looks like my opponent does not have it. So we'll go ahead and give this a second poison, killing it off. And those are status effects, so this is getting boosted every time. And they've had enough, so they're passing. You can pass at any point, and between each round you draw 3 additional cards. You get to mulligan 2 of them unless you're the person on the play, then you get to mulligan a third at the first round, but not any of the subsequent rounds. So once you get below 7 cards, or 7 or below, you can start looking to pass the round, depending on the state of the game. I'm obviously winning by a large amount, so my opponent decides to pack it in and go for another try in another round. So since I'm winning the round, there's no reason for me to play anything else. I'm below the card limit threshold, even if I draw 3. 10 is the limit. And we have a couple of aristocrats. So then we have poisons. So I'm pretty happy with this hand. I'm not gonna get too greedy, although I should look for this guy to help me find my scenario after I shuffle it back in. So I'll dump one of the poisons and dump another one of the poisons. Didn't seem to matter too much. So we'll play this. This shuffles a card back into our deck. So we get to reuse this powerful ability. This is the only faction in the game that can use its scenario twice. This unit is really powerful, so we should probably do something about it. And I'll go ahead and give it a lock, which disables its ability. See the little lock and the X through it. We're not worried about that because we have a 3-power creature, so Ideally, we stay ahead of our opponent in points, and that way they can't really ever hope to win. We can also consider passing here, but this gives them card advantage going into the next round. Whoever wins the round is on the play, if you hadn't figured that one out yet. Let's see here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 golds. So if I manage to hit this, I'll have 3 golds, which gives me a very high chance of hitting Masquerade Ball off his ability. It might be worth going for if we really want to push. But I don't think we do. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the card disadvantage and rely on the fact that I have so much removal that I'll be able to win the game. And we've pulled basically every other gold card from our deck. So we're in a very good position as far as that's concerned. The opponent has consume effects, which makes this card less appealing. A cow carcass goes to your opponent and dies, and then poisons the 2 enemies next to it. But because they are able to eat the carcass, which is kind of weird when you say that out loud, it makes that ability less useful, because if it dies before its ability goes off, it does nothing. So I'll go ahead and play the War Council. There's 2 cards that I'm really looking for here, and we miss both of them, which is really, really sad. So there's our cow carcass. If we had hit this, we would be able to play it on the opponent's side and find our Masquerade Ball, and we were also looking for Masquerade Ball. Even this Thirsty Dame would have been better than what we hit, but it is all right. Nothing to fear. We'll go ahead and play the Thirsty Dame. Hope this doesn't die this turn. And now we just go ahead and poison this off. This will get us a buff from the enemy getting another status from the poison. So this won't die, and this is our best creature. The other 2 are expendable. Yeah, and so that dealt 4 damage, but because my creature is only 3, I kind of gain a point in that aspect, as opposed to if it had done 4 to either one of the other 2 creatures. So I kind of got lucky there. So I'm gonna deploy this guy who says he can steal a locked enemy, and then plan on locking this enemy next turn, or maybe this enemy. Yeah, see how huge this is? So I play this gives this a lock, and then I'm able to steal this, which puts me super far ahead. That's a 26 point swing, not counting the creature that I played to use to facilitate this. So I feel like my opponent is not going to have a chance in this game, especially with multiple poisons coming up. And each one grows one of my creatures. I think I'll hold on to this poison just because I need to play something this turn. Although I am kind of curious, like if I purify, which gets rid of the abilities, the effects, the status effects, which is spying and locked, if I'll be able to consume again. I doubt it, but I am curious. I haven't played this game enough to know the answer to that. So we'll do that. We'll hold on to our poison, because poison combined with this guy who says destroy an enemy with a status can kill anything. He can also just come down and kill this creature because it's doomed, and doomed is a status. And being basically 30 points ahead of my opponent pretty much means that there's no chance of me losing this game. Again, I'll hold on to these two, and this is usually for smaller creature decks where they play a bunch of units. You can deal 2 damage to every unit in a single row, but I'll play that just so that I can hold on to this for one more turn. They play a slightly bigger minion, which gives us a better target for our ability. But even if we didn't have this, we were destroying this game. And yes, it is against the computer, but I feel the computer plays quite a bit better in Gwent than it does in Mythgard. Either way, far and wide ahead of this, ahead in this game. And that's Gwent. I can play another deck just to give you another showing of what different things that Mythgard can do, or Gwent can do. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe. Also, let me know down in the comments if you like to see more Gwent. I will probably start doing this every Tuesday just because it's extra experience day, and that's normally the day I try and have some sort of content out. But I would like to know what you guys think. Your opinion does matter. So this is a boosty deck. We're just trying to boost stuff. We have this guy who every time he receives a boost, he deals 1 damage to a random enemy, and this guy gives bleeding 2 to a random enemy, and bleeding is basically it takes 1 damage at the end of turn. So bleeding 2 for 2 turns, it would take 1 damage, and these effects do stack. His hand has a lot of bronze cards in it, which is kind of not good, but I also think that these bronze cards put together can win. I'll go ahead and ship this one just to see if we can get something a little bit better, and I'll ship this because I'd rather have it in a later round. And I think this hand is fine. It should be able to win us the first round, unless my opponent goes all in. So I'll play this guy. He says when he's played, boost him by 5, and then if he's in the graveyard and you play a soldier, you get to summon him from your graveyard to a random row, which is really powerful. Just having the extra point carry over into other rounds is super powerful. And the fact that if they have removal or they're not able to do anything proactive, like that is something a normal player would never do. So there is that, but like there's absolutely no reason to activate your full leader ability. But they have a Kran, which consumes these. Basically means it destroys the creature and gains its power. So we'll deploy this. It gives vitality, which is the opposite of bleeding, which means it's going to receive a buff at the end of turn every turn for 2 turns. And so by receiving that buff, he'll deal 1 random damage. I'm not too worried about anything they could do, so I'll go ahead and play this. That was the last target we wanted it to hit because of its ability, but it's alright. still pretty far ahead in this game. This guy's ability is a little bit more powerful than this guy's, and these two creatures have bonded, so when you have two of them on the battlefield, you get the bonded effect, and so I get 4 vitality. Another consume creature, which is basically all that my opponent does, which is fine, not a big deal. So I'm gonna boost my damage guy, and I was hoping it would hit the 6 power creature so I could kill it with 5 damage, but it doesn't. So I'll go ahead and deal 5 damage to this guy. Not really worried about it. Yeah, my opponent passes. They've had enough, and like I said, my bronze cards won the game. I did play 2 gold, but one is carryover and the other was just another engine, and it allowed me to hold on to my other cards. This bronze card is extremely useful for what this deck is trying to do. I am playing a card called Drog, and Drog says turn all your humans in this row to Kadawini Reverence, and what these Reverence do is they have an ability where they can deal 1 damage to a unit, and if that damage kills that unit, they get to spawn a base copy of themselves, which is a 3 power creature that still has that ability. So the idea is to gain control of the round through this ability. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my opponent has card advantage. So I'll probably hold on to all these cards because they're really good. And I'll do what's called a dry pass, which means I'm not going to play anything, force my opponent to go down a card, which evens us out in terms of cards and gives me what's called last say, which is super important. It means I get the last play of the game, which is really useful when you're holding answers to your opponent's threats. For instance, I'm playing a Geralt of Rivia, which is a base card. Everyone gets it when they start the game, and it says when it enters the battlefield, destroy a unit with 9 or more power. And against decks that like to go tall, this guy can get a lot of value killing creatures 15, sometimes 20 power. Super awesome effect. And this guy's back. He sets a non-boosted enemy's power to 1. So against a tall threat that hasn't been boosted by any abilities, we can reset that to 1 and use one of our Drog to kill it off. This guy gets boost himself 1 for each boosted allied unit, and our ability makes one of these guys and has 4 charges. We can use it 4 times during the entirety of the game to buff a creature by 1. So usually is like a 6 to 9 point play, but it is a weaker card by itself. And then we already have 2 of these, so I'll go ahead and ship one of them. And let's get our engine going. We'll go ahead and play these humans. They have what's called shield, so they block the first amount of damage that's dealt to them, no matter how much that damage is. So if they were dealt 100 damage, the shield would be removed and they would survive, which is really powerful. Makes them very sticky threats. And now we have 4 humans lined up in a row. And we have Royal Decree, which allows me to play a unit from my deck. So we'll go ahead and get Drog. We'll play the Drog in this row, transforming all these into Kadawini Reverence, and set up for next turn. We have what's called Sabrina, and creatures with spying go to the enemy. So you can place this wherever you want, and then you can ping it off with one of your Reverence, and it'll deal 2 damage to that entire row, which is really awesome. They don't have anything that I really want to kill yet, so I'll go ahead and play Mauler, potentially set up a better Reverent. Also to note, I can kill off my own soldier with a Reverent, which will spawn another Reverent, and then when I play another soldier, it will come back. So for instance, I can do this, and it makes another one, and then I can play this one, and it brings it back. So that's a way to generate more power, which is, I think, a pretty cool effect. So we'll kill this guy off, and we'll go ahead and pass the turn. We're sitting pretty. Alright, so because we have this one-powered enemy, this Death Wish ability, which destroys the lowest enemy, is almost useless, especially since this guy comes back. So we'll go ahead and play this out. Use it to set a non-boosted. Green means it's boosted. So my choice is this guy who comes back after he dies, or this guy whose ability is almost completely worthless. So we'll set that to 1. We'll ping it off, which gives us another 3 power and another ability next turn. So we're just all sorts of outvaluing our opponent. I should have played this next to the drummer so it gets boosted, so my leader ability is more powerful. Slight misstep on my part, but I don't think it'll matter too much at the end of things. So as it stands, we're doing all right. I might go ahead and play. This is tough. Yeah, I'll go ahead and play Baron. Normally this is a card that you would want to save towards the end of the game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can only have 9 units per row. So I'll go ahead and ping this off so that it doesn't take up the row. And again, I messed up with my placement. I don't have to activate this ability this turn, so I'll go ahead and pass. See if he plays anything that's worth killing or worth debuffing even more. So he has Order, which means if he's played on the back row, he gets +1 but can't activate his ability that turn. But if he's played on the front row, he can activate his ability that turn. And Inspired, which means if it's been boosted, he gets the Inspired ability, which says if he was boosted, give bleeding for the duration of equal to the amount boosted. So I'm going to give him +1, and then I'm going to debuff this enemy, so it takes away 4 points and gives it bleeding 4. So every turn for 4 turns, it's going to lose. A power. And then I'll go ahead and play Falibor. Falibor says deal 3 damage. If it kills that creature, deal 2 damage. And this is a soldier, so it summons this guy back. And we're gonna save the damage up on the front row so that our Sabrina has more impact. And we'll go ahead and pass. And again, we're in a spot where I don't think the opponent can do anything to win. So yeah, we'll go ahead and play Sabrina. We'll ping Sabrina off, which gives us a guy, deals 2 damage to their entire row, which sets up killing off another guy. We won't get another guy because our row is filled up, but we're so far ahead, it doesn't even matter. And if they were to play a very tall threat, like this one, it goes to 10, which is just enough for me to kill it with Geralt. And then I can buff 2 random units, play this guy, which gets that back, and we win by a huge amount. And that's what this deck does. This deck plays a very good long round. So if you watch other streamers, you'll hear them talk about long rounds and short rounds in terms of Gwent. And long rounds are essentially 7 or more cards. Short rounds are like anything less than that. Generally, short rounds are more like 5 or less. Like you have your like mid rounds. There's also a term they call bleeding. So if you win the first round, your opponent can never really pass early because you can always threaten to take the entire game. So by winning the first round, you kind of control the action and you can do what's called bleeding your opponent, which means taking their resources, trading your bad cards for their hopefully good cards, and hoping that your short round is better than theirs. So like, if we play all our cards down to the last ones on round 2, we start round 3 with 3 cards. And some decks, like monsters, play a lot of tall units, which is bigger threats, 10 plus power, that sort of thing. And by doing that, they have a very good short round. So a lot of times you'll see monster players either bleed their opponent or even just try and 2-0 them because they've taken the first round. So the idea against monsters is to never let them have round control because their short game is really powerful. Other than that, that's all I've got. If you've got any questions regarding Gwent, I will do my best to answer them. I know this wasn't the greatest tutorial. I just wanted to show you guys what I've been up to and see what your thoughts are on Gwent. Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you at the next one.